Hey, sixth grade. Our screencast today is on writing division expressions. So our objective is I can write numerical expressions in two forms and note the relationship between the two. You can write a division expression by writing the dividend, the division sign, and then the divisor. But you can also make it look like a fraction. The dividend goes on top, then the fraction bar, divisor. So how can we write or show 8 divided by 2? Well, you could write it dividend, division symbol, divisor, or you could also write it 8 over 2. Now, is 8 over 2 the same as 2 over 8? No. Remember, division is not commutative. We can't just switch them around. 8 divided by 2 would be 4, but 2 divided by 8 would be 1 over 4. So 4 is very different than 1 over 4. If we showed this using variables or letters, I could show A divided by B using these same two forms. So I could show you A divided by B so that I have the dividend, division symbol, and then the divisor, A divided by B. But we could also write A divided by B. All right, so now we're going to look at some models that help us kind of show the same thing. So for example 1, and we're going to be building this together. For example 1, let's write an expression showing 1 divided by 2 without the division symbol. We are going to write 1 divided by 2 without showing that symbol right there. So we could make a bar diagram. I could draw, here's my rectangle for my bar diagram. Here's my entire model. This entire model represents one whole, and I could take this chunk of it and show that if I have one entire piece divided into two sections, this one piece would be showing my 1/2. So here's one whole model that I divided into my two sections. 1 divided by 2 is the same as 1 over 2, and we just proved that using this model. For example 2, let's write an expression using a variable. So let's show A divided by 2 without the use of that division symbol. Here we have a variable being divided by 2, but we can look at a model just like we did with this problem. So I would show my entire bar diagram just like I did before. Instead of the whole thing being 1 this time though, the whole bar diagram is represented by the variable A. And so if I wanted to divide that into two pieces, I just did that using this little line that I drew, and I'd be looking at the same chunk as before. A divided by 2 is the same as A over 2, and we can prove that using this model. For example 3, there we go. We will write an expression showing two variables, A divided by B. So you can kind of see the progression here. We had both numbers, now we had one letter, one number, now we have two letters. Okay, so we have two variables, but we want to write this without using that division symbol. And we're thinking, how can we use what we just learned in these first two examples to help us with this example? Our dividend, which I'll show you in pink, becomes our numerator. So remember, the dividend is this first number, the bigger number that we start with, here's our dividend, here's our dividend, here's our dividend. That becomes our numerator, like we see here. So I would put my a on top, then the fraction bar, and then the divisor becomes our denominator. And I already used the blue, so let me grab a green. So our divisor becomes the denominator. So the 2 was the denominator here. So our b would go here. We don't necessarily need the models after we learn that principle, but if drawing the models is helpful for you while you're starting this out, that's totally okay. So we have two variables. We know a divided by b would look like this, a on top, a over b. What about if I gave you a problem, we'll call this one example 4, that looked like this. Write an expression for g divided by the quantity h plus 3. So a pretty long expression written out in word form, and I said write an expression for this with the division symbol. Let's start with the symbol. So we can use this. Well, I know that I would see g divided by, and then all of this, the quantity h plus 3. Oh, okay, so now that I broke that down, this is actually easier because it's plus, and then I have h and 3. If I wanted to write that without the division symbol, we would have our divisor here. I know that becomes our numerator over the entire, our dividend is our numerator, so g is in the top. Then our divisor, h plus 3, this entire part of the expression goes into the denominator. So h plus 3 is the entire denominator. So now we rewrote that expression into a division expression without the division symbol. And we can try one more like this. So how about write an expression for the quotient. This will be our last example, example 5. The quotient of the quantity m reduced by 3 and 5. Okay, so I could start it off by using the division symbol, and then eventually we want to take that division symbol away. So the quotient of the quantity m, so that means, oh, m reduced by 3, that all goes together. So m reduced by 3, that would be like m minus 3, and they want us to divide that by 5. So if I were to write this with our division bar, like we did up here, then everything at my dividend, everything before the division symbol would go in the numerator. So m minus 3 will all be in the numerator, and then 5 is after the division symbol. That's my divisor, that goes in the denominator. All right, so now you get to try some practice problems using our very colorful notes to help you. So all of your practice problems, they look like this. It's A through H plus this little closing question at the bottom. You need to write each of these expressions with the division symbol and then also as a fraction. So I'll do A with you. For A, you would have to write it like this. 12 divided by 4, and then also 12 over 4. So we're practicing turning these word form expressions into division expressions with math symbols like the division symbol, and then also as a fraction. So when you unpause, you'll see that I'm going to be writing all the answers here for you to check, and then I'll flip this down so you can see the answer to this. How would you rewrite any division problem using a fraction? Okay, so I'm going to be writing your answers up for you. B, 3 divided by 5 would look like this. And then in fraction form, 3 over 5. A divided by 4, A over 4. The quotient of 6 and M, we would have 6 divided by M, 6 over, that's an M. 7 divided by the quantity of X plus Y. 7 divided by the quantity X plus Y, or 7 would be the dividend over X plus Y. F, we have Y divided by the quantity of X minus 11. Y divided by X minus 11. Okay, I'll switch to green since the writing is getting a little small. The sum of the quantity H and 3, so that means we're adding. Sum means add. So H plus 3, and then divided by 4. Using the division symbol though, it would be H plus 3 divided by 4. The quotient of the quantity K minus 10. So we do that part first, K minus 10, and then divided by M. And so that would be K minus 10 in the numerator, M in the denominator. And then the answer to this question, how would you rewrite any division problem using a fraction instead of this division symbol? The dividend would become the numerator, and the divisor would become the denominator. Thanks so much.